everyone, and welcome to our third coffee morning. Today, we are with the wonderful Nathan Powell, who will be telling you all about his career and about his very exciting new role. But to begin with, we are going to kick off with what is always our first question, and that is, Nathan, what was the first paid job you ever had in the arts?
Oh, the first paid job I ever had in the arts. I think it was, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the first paid thing that I ever did was as an actor, and it was playing the genie in an adult pantomime.
That is very fun. That is very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So, from the adult pantomime, can you give us a bit of a talk through your career from there to now?
Yeah, of course. So I think I was always interested in storytelling. I didn't come from like a particularly theatrical family. I didn't go and see shows that often, but I remember every Christmas as like a Christmas treat, my auntie would take us, like all of the kids, to go and see a show. I remember going to see, she took us to The Lion King one year, and it was just like the most spectacular thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like what storytelling can be, and this is what storytelling can look like. So I was always interested in it, but I didn't really know that that was going to be a career that I was going to do or be involved in any way. Uh, so after I finished school, I knew that I wanted to go to university. I knew that I wanted to experience university because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I knew that, yeah, I knew that I wanted to get out of London. I wanted to see something else and experience something else. And I was going to go and study business studies. So I had like my, what are they called? My business studies, not cover letter. What are they called? Like when you have to go through UCAS to personal statement. That's it. Yeah, yeah. So it's all about business and why I loved business so much. And then I went to Leeds University, like one of their open days. Um, and then I remember just saying to my dad, "Oh, can we just like go and check out like what the theatre place is like?" And then I went there, and it was such like a stark contrast to the big lecture hall that I sat in to hear people talk about business, where I was nodding off for a long time, and then just seeing the excitement and the buzz in the theatre space at Leeds Uni. So then I sort of pivoted and decided that I wasn't going to go to university unless it was doing something that I was interested in. So then I applied for theatre courses. And then I got the one at Leeds and had to explain why my personal statement was all about business and why that was wrong. So I studied at Leeds for 3 years or 4 years, really, because I had to take a year out for family and stuff. So I was in Leeds for 4 years, and I didn't do particularly well in the course. I realized that academics isn't for me. But actually, it was like a really brilliant introduction to like making work and making my own work. So, yeah, I didn't get along with the theory as much as I did just making work with peers outside of the course. Um, and then I moved back home to London and thought I'm going to be an actor. And then realized that I shouldn't be an actor because I wasn't a very good actor. But I still wanted to tell stories. So then I started doing some teaching work. So I started doing some teaching for after school clubs, like drama classes for primary age children. And then I started teaching a BTEC in performing arts for young people that had been excluded or weren't able to access mainstream education for various reasons. So I did that for a couple of years while running like summer arts programs, like loads of wonderful community work and loads of brilliant work with young people. And then from that, I got a job up in Nottingham at Nottingham Playhouse, working in their participation team that was led by Fiona Buffini at the time. Um, so yeah, I moved up to Nottingham, and I feel like that was like my first proper. It's like, all right, okay, I'm in the industry now. Um, and I was, yeah, doing lots of outreach work and lots of work with young people and youth theatre and just trying to broaden the reach of our participation uh, program in the city and in the Midlands in general. And then as a part of that job, uh, I was really, yeah, I feel really lucky actually that I got the opportunity to start doing some programming. So the Nottingham Playhouse has a studio called the Neville Studio that was programmed often by Fiona as the associate director. But there were times when she would ask me to help program different seasons of work in that studio. And that was like a real like headfirst dive into like producing and programming work and exploring that side of things. So I'd always been just on the making side. And actually there was like a real joy that I got from being able to facilitate really brilliant artists coming in to the theatre and making work and sharing that work with local audiences. Like I got like often like a much more of a buzz off of watching a wonderful show that I had programmed than a show that I had directed, for example. I was like, oh, okay, I think there's something more that I'm interested in this world and what it is that I want to do that I think is more about facilitating artists to share and make brilliant work that I could never dream of making or I don't have like the ability to make. There was something really exciting about offering those platforms and sharing that type of work. So then, yeah, during my time in Nottingham Playhouse, actually Fiona was really like pushed me to explore my interest as a director and what it meant for me to be making my own work, professional work, and she was really encouraging of me exploring that. So I started doing a bit more of that, and that's when I started writing. So I started writing work. I started writing work mainly to be able to have something to direct. I was like, okay, yeah, if no one will give me anything, then I'll write something myself and I'll direct stuff myself. So I started doing that, which was brilliant. And like yeah, it was like a proper, I suppose, guerrilla style education in writing, directing, producing, marketing, how you speak to venues and how you build those relationships with different venues and organizations that can support your work to take it to the next level. So I was doing that while I was in Nottingham. So I was sort of sometimes taking leave to go and make other work. And then the opportunity came up for me to move to Liverpool, which is where I live now and where I've been for 8 years now. So I came to join the most incredible company called 20 Stories High, who I still do some work with now, who are based here in Liverpool, in LA, and they are a company that makes work with and for working class and culturally diverse young people in the city and beyond. So we've got like regular youth theatres and participation work that we do, and then also professional touring work that we make and tour around the country and sometimes internationally. So I came to join 20 Stories High as their associate director on a 2-year contract and then stayed and never left. And that was part of like a really brilliant program called the Artistic Directors Leadership Program, with a scheme that was built and developed by RTYDS, ITC, and then 4 theatre companies. 20 Stories High was one of those. And it was all about getting more global majority leaders, artists into leadership positions. And yeah, and that was an incredible project and introduced me to so many amazing people that are still like my collaborators today that I never would have met without that program. So yeah, like a side note, as we talk about like the decrease in arts funding and stuff, like opportunities like that was a big, massive cohort of like 30 of us. And then 4 of us had these full-time paid associate director gigs that like completely transformed so many of our careers, and like so many people from that cohort are doing like incredible things like so yeah, it's wonderful. So yeah, we need more of that, and hopefully a future government can help deliver that a bit better than currently.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I came and did that, and then I stayed with them for an extra year as their associate, as they were sort of then wanted to build their own associate model outside of just that ADLP framework. So I stayed with them for an extra year to do that, and then I guess started my freelance career in the city and nationally as a writer and director. So it was like gigging a lot, and yeah. Did quite a bit of writing work with Derby Theatre, and then different directing projects. Started producing more of my own work. Started working with a writer in the city called Joe Ward Monroe. We started developing our own work as a company, and touring it to community spaces and studio spaces. So yeah, and then I've just, I suppose, carried on developing and like learning on the job. And then tell me if this is boring, by the way, and you want to like interject and ask anything else. If I'm going off on a completely wrong tangent. Um, this is your life. And then I joined NSDF 3 years ago now. So 3 years ago, 3 years ago now. So the National Student Drama Festival as their artistic director. And NSDF is the most beautiful company that provides space for young artists, not just students, just young artists entering the industry or who have already entered the industry and are starting to make their way. Offers them the space to connect to the industry in a more meaningful way and present their work amongst peers and industry professionals, to continue to develop them as artists and shape what they want the future of theatre making and theatre to be. So we run an annual festival, and we just had in April our festival at the Leicester Curve, which was beautiful. Loads of young people sharing incredible, wonderful, wacky, insane work that will one day change the world. So yeah, it was really beautiful. So yes, so that's what I do currently. And I am sitting in the offices of the Liverpool Everyman and Playhouse at the moment, which is where I will be starting as their creative director very soon. So that's my new role that I can't tell you much about because don't know, haven't started yet.
That's so like it's all so interesting. And I think like I knew bits of that before, but I didn't know all of it. And there's some real things that kind of stuck out to me as you were sort of going through your journey. And I think one of them that's probably going to surprise quite a lot of people, especially from someone like me who grew up outside of London, is that while you grew up in London, you've actually found the bulk probably of your creative
Yeah,
work outside of the city. And I think there's such a
yeah.
view of the UK in terms of if you want to work in theatre, you need to move to London, and you actually did the complete opposite and moved out.
Yeah, completely. And I think there is this and I think actors probably like find that urge more than anyone of like, I need to be in London to have a career in theatre. And it's so not true. I think it's different if you come from a place or a town where there like isn't any arts infrastructure there at all, and where you like seek that work. But like places like cities like Liverpool and Manchester or Sheffield or Leeds or wherever actually have such like incredible arts scenes and culture scenes, that you can make a career out of. And I think actually there's this idea I think that is shifting, which is about London being the place where all of the great work happens. And it's not true. The most amazing work that I have seen has been all over the country. There's still like this sort of there's a snobbery attached to like London, and like if you want to be serious and and there's like this obsession with like your London debut. Like I find it really bizarre that everyone's like obsessed over their London debut. Like, what do you mean? Like what, but you've like been making work for years, like really incredible, groundbreaking, magical work across the country, but like you're hyper focused on your London debut. And I just think, I just don't think it's important. And of course, there's something about density, and of course, there are more theatres and more companies in London, but there are also more people going for those same roles. And you do just become less visible, I think, with that sort of urge to move there. And also, I feel like Liverpool's my home now. It's where me and my partner decided that we wanted to like build our lives, and we've got three wonderful children, and the most interesting and exciting thing for me is to be able to make work for and with my home. So yeah, there's no urge for me to like move to London again, or I mean I couldn't afford to be fair.
Yeah.
Now I've left, I couldn't if I wanted to. But yeah, I just I love being able to connect with people so easily, and be excited about making work that feels really local but also global at the same time in the city where we live.
Absolutely. And I think it's so true. Like, I think we all kind of feel we see sort of a lot of London centric press about the arts and sort of London centric headlines. And while there is obviously a place for London theatre with the West End and the amazing work that goes on there, especially the work that brings in loads of tourism and things that are really great for our cultural. But also, there is nothing stopping anyone making work where they are. And I think
Yeah,
that shouted about far more than it is at the minute. And I think it's
yeah,
for everyone watching who might be just starting their careers that actually people move out and have far
Mm,
than they did when they were in London.
yeah, yeah, completely, completely. And it's where I had like real space to like, yeah, hone my craft and develop my skill set as a director and writer is, yeah, by being outside of London and meeting lots of different practitioners that I never would have come across. And yeah, yeah, it was massive for me to leave London, and now I couldn't. Yeah, it's home. Do you know what I mean? So home's always home. Do you know, it's where my family is. It's where, you know what I mean? There's always a piece of my heart in London, but actually, yeah, Liverpool is home now.
I know. And that brings us perfectly on to my next question when you mentioned that. So some people watching may never have sort of come across like directing as a skill before. So how would you say, in sort of very sort of simple skills, what directing actually involves, like on the day to day? Because I think
Hmm.
a real big view of the director sat in one of those chairs, possibly like on a film set, kind of what does it actually involve for you, sort of like on the daily?
I think like a massive part of directing is project management, and it's leading a team with a centralized goal or ambition. And that's before you think about getting into the rehearsal room. So the rehearsal room is a separate process, but before that, the prep work, the building a creative team, assembling a bunch of wonderful artists that you want to work with to create this thing that you can collaborate on in yeah, whatever form or way it is that you're going to do that. I think that's a big part of the job that often, yeah, people don't talk about much. People want to talk about, you know, the work of actors and how you develop these stories and these worlds and these characters. But I think a massive part of that being successful is getting the first bit right, and bringing together a bunch of people that are really, and I guess this is personal, so this is about me as a director, but bringing together a group of people who are willing to collaborate and explore and experiment and get stuff wrong and have fun with it is a key part of it. But also knowing that people work in lots of different ways. So just being able to manage and being open to accommodating the way that different people work to be able to achieve their best possible work, I think is a big part of what directing is. But yes, I suppose to be a director is to lead a creative team and a company to develop a piece of work that ends up on a stage or wherever it is that it ends up, not necessarily a stage, with yeah, lead in that concept and that idea and the structure for what that piece and what that world is that you're creating. Um, and then it's just yeah, it's fun. Like I love my job. I love like the directing bit of my job uh, because I just get to yeah, I just get to collaborate with artists that I really respect and that I really admire that can do things that I never would have imagined were possible. So just to be able to bring a group of people into a space and hold, yeah, facilitate a space that allows them to play and explore and develop new things within, I suppose, the confines of the boundaries of whatever it is that you've set as a director, just feels really uh, exciting. But yeah, I think a massive part of directing is like people management and just how you support people to make the best work that they possibly can. It's yeah, it's a facilitating role, I think, a director.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because you're right. We do often think of sort of in the room and being with the actors rather than all the sort of wealth of prep that comes with it. I
Yeah.
wonder how similar did you find kind of the transition between making work alongside sort of your studies when you were a student to then making work sort of in the professional sphere? Did you find there was a big change or did you sort of find it very similar?
Um, I think the big change for me from moving from like that sort of world of my education and learning and creating work with my peers to then professional work was about uh, the defined roles. So I think because when you're just sort of mucking in and a group of you get together, you're like, we want to make this piece. Everyone sort of shares in loads of different roles, and you're probably performing in it. And if you're devising it, you're all coming up with ideas and sort of shaping it together. And there's like a shared directorial vision that you're all making together, and you're all out flyering together, and you're sat around a computer like badly drawing up like a poster because you don't know how to do it, but you're figuring it out all together, and everyone's chucking in all those ideas. So I think then coming in to make professional work as a director or as a writer, I think there was a learning curve in going, oh, this is my role. And actually, there are other people that are really, really skilled at these really specific things that they have trained or worked at or developed or learned how to do, um, that we collaborate on, but they then go off and do that. I think that was like the real shift for me, is realizing that you don't have to do everything, because you'll just do everything like either averagely or badly. Whereas you can just do the thing that you're really good at really well, and other people do the things that they're really good at really well. And as long as you're all in communication and collaborating, then the end result is going to be great. So I think, yeah, that was the shift from uh, non-professional to professional work, was understanding structures of the structures of making work and the structures of a company or of a production, and also, yeah, the structures of working in buildings and making work for buildings, and understanding all of the various needs and wants that different departments in buildings have, that maybe you haven't been thinking of just as an individual artist making work or developing your own work. Yeah, coming into the structure of a building, I think is a yeah, it's a lot to take on and learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, especially when you were talking us through sort of everything you've done in your journey, one other thing that really stuck out was that even right from the beginning, you were really focused on working with young people and young artists and new artists. And I think quite a lot of the time people sort of see that as something really experienced theatre makers do.
Mm,
It's not something that people can go into straight away, even if they're actually really interested in it. And I wonder if you
yeah,
could give us a bit more of your experience of kind of being, so still being a young person and making work for and with young artists as well.
yeah. I don't think I'm young anymore. So I can't claim that. Yeah, I don't know, semi young. But I think often we have this we separate stuff in a way that I think often isn't useful. So we'll talk about like participation work and professional work, and we don't, yeah, often we find it hard to allow those things to cross over and intersect. And I think that's what I'm really interested in, and that's what excites me. And I think that's why um it was so incredible for me to work with 20 Stories High for so long and continue that working relationship with them, because actually seeing value placed in people being able to access the arts that might not be professional artists but develop wonderful things, um yeah, feels like that just feels exciting to me as a person, as an individual. um so yeah, to be able to allow those two worlds and those two things to exist in a way that doesn't feel like one is placed on a higher pedestal than the other feels really um important to me. And I think, you know, often, the majority of the time, what we are doing is telling stories about people. um so I feel like the best way to tell stories about people is to do that with people, um uh, that are, you know, living those particular lives, or, you know, have a connection to whatever that work is. And I think that can only enrich and develop and enhance the work that you're making anyway. So yeah, so sometimes that might be, you know, big community casts or big groups of young people on a stage, but other times it might just be about working with those people to develop the work in a really detailed and informative way that allows people to have ownership over the stories that are ending up on stage. So yeah, I think that's always going to be work that I love and enjoy and champion and will want to go and see and will want to be a part of making, um, until, yeah, you know, I think, yeah, I don't know, is there a shift in, I think there's been a shift, I suppose, as I get older, um, which is about how connected you are to the experiences of those young people in particular. Like I feel like fairly removed from the experiences of Gen Z or whatever. Do you know what I mean? As like an old millennial who, like, they look at and think you're so like weird and old, and what type of life do you live? Do you know what I mean? So then it's, yeah, I think there's like a joy in like always being able to engage with like youth and youth culture. Like youth culture shapes the world. Like every generation of young people shapes the world that we live in and the world that we experience. So yeah, it feels important to stay connected to that when making theatre.
No, absolutely. And I think it's so fun, sort of seeing the different ways in which you work that I think are all kind of classed as well, would maybe be classed as participatory or community work, and to see how it is all still theatre. I think sometimes we can see, like when you look on arts jobs or you're looking through like theatre listings, you see like participation coordinator. It's not always clear
Yeah.
what that means.
Hmm.
And I think you've given us a really great example of sort of how that work feeds into not only sort of the work that you see on stage, but how it influences the
Yeah.
work as well.
Completely. And I think often people like look at it as like particularly for directors, um, uh, and yeah, it kind of annoys me when directors do it. It's like people can see it as like a stepping stone. Like, okay, I'll do like a couple of youth theatre shows, and then I'll go and do some real shows. It's like, no, no, no. Like that's completely the wrong way around. Actually, the like what you'll learn and what you'll develop from making shows with young people. Yeah, like directing a youth theatre show is always like a much more challenging but equally rewarding process than directing a professional. Do you know what I mean? It's like, of course, it's harder to direct a show of 20, 30 young people who aren't professionals and like will probably turn up to rehearsals half of the time because they live other lives and it's not their world. Like, of course, that's a harder thing to do and um achieve. And that work is, yeah, it's so valuable. That's why, that's why we are subsidized as theatres. It's to give wonderful theatrical experiences to our local communities and wider communities. So yeah, I get quite annoyed at that sort of lessening of that work. That work is really important.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of work was really important to me growing up. Like I did so much Amdram, and I was really lucky that where I grew up, there was such a wealth of like sort of companies that were for young people and worked with young people to put on like
Yeah.
really musicals and
Mm,
a wide variety of stuff. And I can safely say that if that what didn't exist, that infrastructure, I wouldn't have got into theatre
yeah.
because it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
felt like it was for me. And I think
Mm,
people can forget that doing this work in communities isn't just to create amazing theatre, it's to sustain the theatre being
yeah.
made in the future.
Exactly. Exactly. Because otherwise, yeah, who are going to be, yeah, who your audience is if you're not engaging people from, yeah, the very beginning.
Absolutely. And I think you have what we'd probably call like a portfolio career. So you've done a lot of different sort of roles in terms of like maybe some producing, participation, direction, writing. And I think that's something that's often quite unique to the arts, because I think especially when you're kind of speaking to careers advisors or looking at jobs
Mm,
sort of in college or school, and people are like, oh, I'm going to be, I don't know, a nurse. And then you're a nurse and
yeah.
specialism, but you've got one role.
Yeah.
How do you kind of manage those different roles, and what is sort of the benefit to you of working in that very multidisciplinary way?
Yeah. I think I knew quite early on into uh, my directing and writing career that I was interested in arts leadership. So sort of talking about being able to program the studio space at Nottingham sort of made me realize, oh, okay, I think this is what I want to do, and I think this is what I can offer, and this is how I might be able to be useful in this sector. So I think from that point onwards, it felt important to me to gather as many experiences as I could of developing and making theatre. So whether that be teaching or producing or marketing or programming, it felt useful that I could uh, uh, not necessarily like fully develop those skills, but just have an understanding of what that work is and what that work looks like. So that I know what it is that I'm asking of people. Or yeah, what might be achievable or might not be achievable. So I think it's really useful to have those experiences and those skills to then be in a position of leadership within an arts organization or a building. I think uh, like I always say that I feel like the theatre industry is quite strange in the way that we view leadership. And in some ways, it's like brilliant because actually artists lead artistic institutions. But also, there's like we sometimes sort of go, well, who's like a really incredible artist? Uh, let's just let them run a business. It's like, but actually they don't have any of those experiences or interest sometimes in what it means to uh, run a business. It's kind of like if you went, I don't know, Taylor Swift is in Liverpool at the moment. Like if Taylor Swift is like the biggest pop star in the world, she should just run all of the music businesses. It's like, well, actually, but maybe that's not her skill set. She's like a really brilliant performer and writer, um, but maybe isn't necessarily interested in running a business in that way. So yeah, I think it's been really useful to me um, to develop those skills, or like at least like dip my toe into what it means to experience those different uh, uh, jobs and workloads to then better inform what that means for me as an artistic leader.
Absolutely. And were there any, start again, were there any of those roles that you really didn't maybe enjoy or didn't really take to, but knew kind of you were doing them to get that understanding? Or did you kind of really take different things from different ones?
Yeah, I think I'm a really good director. I think I'm a really good writer, and I think I'm a good manager. And I don't think I'm good at anything else. Like I'm not the best producer, I'm not a great marketer, but I understand how to connect to people and speak to people, but actually the execution of it I'm not good at. Do you know what I mean? Like I know what that production process is, but the execution of it, there's people that are better at that than me, but I just have an understanding of them.
Mm.
Um, and all of it is in the creation of like wonderful work and wonderful arts engagement. So I've enjoyed my work in all of those things. Um, like I absolutely love sitting on Canva making up like a bad poster, but it doesn't mean that I'm ever going to do it better than the marketing team here. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's like I think it's good to experience those things and enjoy contributing to the making of work in ways outside of uh, what your initial or your uh, particular craft is, I suppose. Um, so yeah, I don't think there's anything that I like really don't enjoy. Um, but I just know, yeah, where my skill set lies and where other people's skill set lies and how to, yeah, make the most of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important as well because it kind of really harks to what you said about that transition between your time as a student and then kind of coming into the industry as a professional, learning that you don't have to do all of that work yourself and
Yeah.
that there are people who have specialized in that work
Yeah.
and they're sort of working with them rather than trying to take on everything
Mm,
product much better as well.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes early on you do have to do all that stuff yourself, you know, and it's but that all informs um the way that you how much you appreciate, I suppose, all of the other things that go into making theatre happen, or the arts happen that yeah aren't your specific skill set.
Absolutely. And I think as well with having that portfolio career, it sounds almost as if it has helped to shape what you do now. Because I remember you saying that when you went to study theatre, you weren't really quite sure, like when you were coming uni, what you wanted to do. And I think there's probably quite a few
Yeah.
people that watching this who know they want to work in the arts or in theatre,
Yeah.
quite knowing what role. How do you
Yeah.
think you ended up working out that arts leadership and working with communities and young people was sort of for you, and that was what you wanted to sort of pursue?
I think because of what you said about like not knowing what I wanted to do and thinking that I was going to go and study business, and like I didn't know what a drama school was, so I didn't know that I didn't know that that was actually the thing that I wanted to do when I was like, okay, I'm going to go and study theatre and performance at university. In my head, that was kind of what drama school was, or like what you saw in TV. That was my pathway to becoming an actor. Um, and that course definitely wasn't that. It was a theatre and performance course where you learned about theatre and performance and wasn't about training you as an actor, as a performer. You know, there were like elements of that. So actually, sort of perversely not getting that training was really useful for me because actually it just meant that I was making uh, stuff and learning on the job. And I suppose, yeah, all of my career has been sort of learning those skills on the job or observing people and developing like what my specific practice looks or feels like. So I think probably that, although like the course itself wasn't the thing that I needed or what I thought I needed, I think it probably definitely was what I needed to think about theatre and the arts more broadly and what my role in that could be. Um, and then I think I just like watching theatre and going, oh wow, like that never would have crossed my mind to do that in that way. Or this concept is a concept that I could have never thought of, but is incredible and I love it. So how can I be a part of creating that?
Yeah.
Um, how can I be a part of supporting and enabling artists to make the most incredible work that is gonna enhance the lives of people that experience it, um, that feels exciting to me. That feels like the most exciting thing that I can do personally is what like makes me happy and brings me joy in my work life. So yeah, I think I knew from quite early on that that's the type of role that I wanted to play in the industry.
Nice. That's such a nice goal because it's not like you sat down and gone, I want to direct X amount of shows in the Olivier at the National. It's a real sort of broad goal. And I think when you have goals like that, it almost
Yeah,
becomes more exciting to fulfill because there are so many different ways in which you can
yeah,
fulfill that. And I think your
yeah.
career really shows how you've fulfilled elements of that in every role you've had.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't mean that like I wouldn't want to do those things. Do you know what I mean? Like Indu, hit me up if got a gig going. But like it's not yeah, like it's not an end goal for me, I think.
Yeah.
Like directing a show at the Olivier isn't like an end goal that I have. It's not really even a goal that I have actually. Do you know? So it's like yeah, that as exciting and incredible and wonderful as that would be for me as an individual artist. Um, I think, yeah, just being around wonderful work that makes a difference to the specific place that it's in feels way more exciting to me. Like we had a press night last night for a show called Tell Me How It Ends, written by a wonderful writer called Tasha. And it's their first ever show that they've written, and it's happened here at the main stage. And it was like the most, yeah, just beautiful, wonderful piece of theatre that came to life and that team produced. And just walking outside into the auditorium and seeing how happy people were and how inspired and moved people were like that. And I had nothing to, I had nothing to do with that show. Um, I haven't even started working here yet, but there's like a pride that I feel that that's the type of work that is coming out of this building, and that I can be a part of developing and allowing to yeah be shared with the wider world. That feels dead exciting. But yeah, but of course I love being in a room and making work and working with actors and creative teams. Like I love all of that stuff. It's just play, isn't it? Like that's the playtime.
Absolutely. And I think you've talked us through quite a lot of different projects. If you had to pick, what would be your favorite piece or role that you've had and why?
Oh God.
I know it's a tricky one.
uh, um, I genuinely, I genuinely don't think I can answer that question. I could give you like a grouping of plays. I genuinely could answer that question. And I'll do them really quickly so it feels like one. I did a show. I did a version of Macbeth at the Orange Tree Theatre. The Orange Tree do this wonderful thing where they invite a director in uh, to adapt to make a piece of Shakespeare that then plays at the theatre and then tours to schools. Um, uh, and I made that show that I was really proud of, and I thought it was like a really great show. And then seeing it pop up in those different schools um, was incredible. We went to one school that was like right around the corner from where I grew up, and there was just like a bunch of kids that looked like me in this big sports hall, like fully engrossed in this version of Macbeth, and the fire alarm went off. And all the kids started chanting, "Let us burn, let us burn, let us burn." I was like, "I've completed it. Do you know what I mean? I've done life. Like life's complete. It's finished now. I can like, do you know what I mean? I can retire." Like that. This group of people were so like engaged and involved in this piece of Shakespeare. Um, yeah, that was beautiful. And then there's projects that I suppose feel significant for me in my career. So like I made a show called The Spine, all about the football academy system, which was like the first thing that I sort of held properly as like a writer, producer, and director that co-producer and director that I like made and developed that felt like it was yeah like a proper piece of me. Um, and I did a show last year called Sucker Punch that was with Queen's Theatre Horn Church and the National Theatres Theatre Nation partnerships that like toured around the country and like reached so many people. And I got to work with like my favorite writer, Roy Williams, and like that was really special for me to like be collaborating with someone that I've looked up to for so long. So yeah, I think there's like loads of different projects that like mean really significant things for me for different reasons. And all of those projects have been uh yeah, working in collaboration with just incredible, wonderful, giving artists.
Amazing. I
Yeah,
think
no one.
fine. They were brilliant examples and story. That's what you let them
Yeah,
know that they don't want to leave.
fully. Yeah. And I can remember like what Shakespeare felt like for me at school. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is dead. Like why are we why are we doing this? And actually, I've stayed away from Shakespeare ever since. Like, do you know what I mean? School days. So then when I got the opportunity, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with this, and actually, this feels really scary for me. But to know that actually there's something that has been offered to that group of young people, that means that that's not a scary thing. Like whether you know if you work in this industry, whether you like it or not, like in some ways you will engage with Shakespeare. So it feels important to feel like you have access and ownership to engage in that work properly. And it felt like that's something that we offered those young people.
Absolutely. And I think what's really come through from everything you've said while we've been chatting is that you are so people centered. Like when you talk about the artists you want to work with or work you've seen, your collaborators, your audiences, and young people, it really comes across that those are the people like you want to work with and you want to support. And I think that is so lovely. And I wonder if you had a word of advice for the people watching who might be just starting out or deciding what they want to do. What would you say to them as they sort of begin this journey, I guess?
Uh, Maybe just because that's what you were talking about just then. But I think the first thing that comes to mind is just uh, like really appreciate the artistry of everyone around you. Like really like acknowledge and realize the amount of like hard work, talent, and skill goes into every role that is involved in making theatre happen. It's like tech rehearsals are my favorite part of any production because all of a sudden, all of these people that have like been working collectively, but also sort of working off in their own spaces, come together and everyone gets to see everyone's brilliance for like the first time properly. Um, and I just like love sitting by the tech box and like watching this like wizardry happen around these weird dials and knobs and millions of things, you know what I mean? And like wonderful things appear from it. And I think it's easy to go, yeah, I think people can, yeah, see theatre and go, wow, those actors were incredible. And then that's where that appreciation ends. And I think actually there's like a team of like stage managers who you will never see watching a show, or you might not know who they are when they come out at the end of the show at press night, that have like done the most incredible stuff behind that stage and like facilitated that work to happen on stage. So I think it's, yeah, it's just like appreciate actually that there's really wonderful, incredible, talented people that are making work in ways that you might never see. Um, and also like might be the ways that you want to make work. I think um yeah, like I realized quite quickly that I wasn't an actor. But there were other ways that I wanted to make work that weren't in my head at the time. Um, so yeah, like be open and be curious to all of the different forms and jobs that there are in developing theatre and work. Because yeah, you might end up realizing that actually you really want to be a technician, or you really want to be a company stage manager because you just love working with people. And do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think stay curious to all of the different jobs that are available to you.
Brilliant. I think that is such an amazing piece of advice. And I think it's also the perfect note to finish on. So thank you so, so much for coming and speaking.
My pleasure.
And just before you go, if people want to follow you or sort of see what you're up to next, where can they find you online?
Oh, I don't even know, you know. I think on Twitter or X or whatever, I think it's just Nathan Powell, or maybe Nathan Powell 141. And then on Instagram, I think it's off nil 141, maybe off nil underscore 141. I don't know. Go to my website, nathanpowell.co.uk, and then all of social links are there and stuff.
Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much.
Oh,
And
thank you, Lottie.
we hope to see you very soon.